So two matters which seem related, because first you have there the Senate Deputy Chief Whip, who is also the Vice Chairman, Senate Committee on Public Accounts, seeking scrutiny of the Nigeria police force over missing firearms. I think that's as a result of what has happened with the Auditor General's report. We also have the situation where Nigeria is said to have climbed up 1 point. 1 point is something, at least some people will say, on Transparency Index ranking. So we have two very gentlemen in our studios this morning to discuss this particular issue. We have Senator Peter Onyekachi, who is the Deputy Chief Whip and also the Vice Chairman, Senate Committee on Public Accounts. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, my dear sister.
And we also have Mr. Gimba Suleiman Hassan, who is a Senior Program Officer at CISLAC and also of Transparency International Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us on Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Well, so let me start with you, Senator, because I'm sure a lot of people saw what happened there yesterday, and they saw how you refuted the report of the police, which was brought before you. You seemed very dissatisfied with what the police was saying. What precisely had led to that?
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank the Channels family for this opportunity to throw more light on what we do as the eye of the people before the government. By law, the Public Account Committee is the only committee of the National Assembly that is set up pursuant to the constitutional provision of 1999, which is the grand norm. And we are saddled with the responsibility of auditing all public accounts, both personnel, finance, and materials used to serve Nigerian people. Consequently, we work with the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, who from time to time does routine checks, you can call it audit, of all government assets and funds. And we are examining 2019 report till date, which is about 4 to 5 years audit report of the Office of Auditor General of the Federation. So in the course of that briefing, particularly in 2019 reports, we saw that 4,900 some fraction firearms, mainly AK-47 and other high-powered firearms, were missing within the police force. And the Office of the General wrote a letter to the then Inspector General of Police to provide explanations as to the whereabouts of these firearms, because these firearms were actually purchased with the public fund. So the public, deserve the explanation as to their whereabouts. But that invitation or that request for that clarification was not honored. So this time around, the report came up again, and we were demanding that Nigerians need to know what happened. Then preliminarily, when we went into the matter, we discovered that some of these firearms were lost as a result of the killing of some of these men, which we prayed for God to accept their souls in heaven, because they paid the supreme price for us to be secured. So we appreciate those who are very gallantry in defending our country, and in the course of that, they died and their firearms were taken. So it goes without saying that a dead man is a conquered person. So it is a good explanation to those points. But unfortunately, the numbers that we have, based on the investigation report given to us, is less than 10%, less than 5%. Of what we are talking about. So that made us to be more curious to say, if we are missing 4,900 firearms and we have explanation to 10 or 15, then there is a big question mark there. It may not have happened under the watch of the current IGP. Everybody knows that, but being a public institution is a continuous process. He is under that obligation to explain to Nigerians, based on the records of handover he had, where he is not satisfied with the records of handover, he can ask for people in charge when these arms were lost. Because as a country, nothing is right unless it is right. We must be determined to do things differently, so we can have different results. So if you are a senator, you must do your job in line with the constitutional provision. If you are a policeman, you must do your job in line with the constitutional provision. The same thing with people in the media. Everybody must sit up. The angels cannot come down from heaven to make our country, Nigeria, to be like the United States of America. It is we, the citizens. Is when we call a spade, that is when Nigeria will be good. And we must start somewhere. It is, and I want to also use the opportunity to call for reformation of Nigerian police. Last 2 weeks ago, in the course of my interview, I said I'm not supporting state police because the Nigerian police is doing well. The Nigerian police has all it takes to protect everybody in this country. What they need is just two things: better welfare and manpower. So instead of splitting the police into states, which may be abused by politicians, increase the manpower of Nigerian police. We already have a very good institution that have always done well in the global community. So all we need to do is to encourage them more, increase their number, they will deliver.
Well, that is another conversation, I can tell you, and I know that if we go into state policing, it will take us away from what it is we really want to discuss. So let me come to you, Mr. Hassan. This is very closely related with what you do. The fact that there ought to be public accountability, there ought to be transparency in how it is that government conducts its business, isn't that right? And only recently, just yesterday, this report came out from Transparency International, and Nigeria has moved up just one notch. What does it mean? Does it mean that we're doing something right, or does it mean that, what exactly does it mean?
All right, I think it's a mixture of both.
It's a mixture
of both, yes. We have actually moved 5 places up. And in terms of the overall score, we have gained an extra point. In 2023, it was 25 points. And the last year, that's 2024, the one that we just released yesterday, we got 26 points over 100. So the corruption perception index is gotten based on surveys of business leaders and then the public institutions. It's a confidential process, and even members of CISLAC, that's Transparency International in Nigeria, were not privy to the information until it's released. So in terms of moving up, I think it's a good thing, but there are still major gaps that needs to be filled, especially in terms of accountability, that's one. And then there is an issue that has been persistent in Nigeria for, I think, for as long as I've been reading the news, which is the issue of oil theft. That's one. You have the issue of public procurement, I think is closely related to what you have been asking the distinguished senator. And then a lot of issues actually need improvement. So we don't have to see it as a major thing. Yes, it's a positive pointer because the ICPC has done well in the past year. EFCC also a bit, although mostly it's related to the Yahoo Boys, which is not public corruption, but the anti-corruption agencies are doing well. But there is no political will from the part of the executive to empower them to continue to do the good work they are doing and then to improve on it. And then if you look at it, they don't have life assurance, which is a major issue, especially given that I think 2 members of the EFCC have been killed, I think, on duty. There was an issue in Ibadan where they went into a house at night and all that. Even if their approach can be cautioned, it shows the lack of security and then also the systemic changes that can be made in the fight against corruption in this country.
Well, I had the privilege to, ask the president a question around corruption just in December when he granted a media chat. And, his focus seems to be about preventing corruption rather than going after those who have been found to be corrupt. From your own perspective, as somebody who's been in this space for a long time, what approach would you recommend the most for Nigeria? Because he believes that if he's able to pay people better, if he's able to, block loopholes, if he's able to centralize collection of funds, etc., the avenues for corruption will be fewer and perhaps will rank better. Do you really believe in that particular approach?
Yes, I actually believe it, and then I think it actually kind of contributed to Nigeria gaining some positivity in the recent ranking. For starts, the, what do you call it? Sorry.
TSA?
Not the TSA. I'm trying to talk in terms of asset declaration. For instance, yes. It's something now that has been digitalized, so which makes it easier for public officials to contribute, and then I think that's a positive pointer. But then you have issues now of anticipatory declaration, which is rampant. Someone that hasn't gotten into office will declare trillions of naira or billions of naira, which he actually doesn't have, with the intention that if the person goes into office, he can make that amount and then fill it up. So it will be like the money has always been there. So I think trying to prevent this is going to be really crucial in the fight against corruption.
Well, a very tough one. I know that my colleague Ayo will have a lot of questions for Senator Nweboyi because he is very, very into the Auditor General's report. So Ayo, over to you.
Well, thank you, Maokwe. Senator, please don't mind Maokwe. Don't let it look like you're here for an exam, your job question. But, really, I'd like you to give us some clarity. There's a report, as at yesterday, which says that according to the Auditor General's report, the police lost about 449 firearms as of 2018, but the rider to it is that 3,907 were unaccounted for as at 2020. This is what we believe that you were told. I'd like to have some clarity on that, please.
Thank you so very much, my dear brother. What we are considering is the report of the Office of the General of the Federation from 2019 till date. Yes, he gave us an insight of what they had as at 2018, but what is before us is the report from 2019 till date. And in that report, 3,907 firearms, mainly AK-47, is missing within the Nigerian police force. And that is what we are discussing. The one of 8,000 is not before us, though he made reference to it. That is the rep of Auditor General of the Federation. However, like I said earlier, when we probed further as to the whereabouts of these firearms, we discovered that some were lost as a result of the death of the officers that were holding them. And these people paid the supreme price, and we should honor them as a nation. However, over 99% is unaccounted for. And that is why we asked the AIG, who is representing the IG, to go and come back and give us facts on this, because all we need to know is to give account as to the whereabouts of these firearms. If all the officers were all killed, and that is why the firearms were lost, we need to know. If the firearms are being hoarded somewhere, we need to know. If some were recovered after the report, because I know that many may have been recovered after the report, Nigerians need to know. We need this information because it will guide us in making our budgets. Because if Nigerian police is losing such a number of arms, it is important that they be supported, to replace these firearms.
All right, Senator, one of the things that's been an issue for me, forgive me, is the length of time it takes for us to consider the Auditor General's report. For instance, you're just telling us now that your committee is looking at the 2019-2020 Auditor General's report. That's about 6-7 years ago. Now, so there are those who will be wondering, Senator, if there is anything really that can come out of the report that you're whatever it is, the findings that you're going to make, what's going to change? Because over time, what we have seen is that we don't get to look at the Auditor General's report. We don't even hear about the Auditor General's report for another 2, 3, 4 years down the line after the fact. So is there a plan or a process to redress that process?
Thank you so very much. All I can tell you is that the 10th Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is out to address all these lapses and the weakness in the internal system of our job as Parliament. You agree with me that the 10th Senate is barely a year plus some months, and this thing was the 2019 even to 2022 ought to have been treated by the 9th Senate, but that was not done. And that is why the 10th Senate, is starting from where the 9th Senate stopped. And that we are treating 2019 report does not mean that we have not done anything for 2022, 2023. We are picking them randomly based on the strength of the issue, just like the one we are talking about. So we start with the big issues, and then later we can go back to the small issues. So Nigerians should expect something different because when you look at the faces you are seeing today in the Nigerian Senate, probably you didn't see some of them before now. That is true that this is a new dawn. Nigerian youths are out to know what is happening to our country. The area of lapses must be corrected. We are not here to probe anybody or to indict anybody, but what we are saying is that everybody must be on his or her toes when they are serving the public, believing that we are all equal before the law. That is the principle of rule of law. So this time around, things must be done properly. So Nigerians should expect something positive from all this report we are considering, because we are going to make them public.
Let me ask Mr. Hassan, what's your reaction to that? What's your take on that? The fact that on the one hand, I mean, you've been looking at the Corruption Perception Index for quite a while, at least your agency has. And on the other hand is the fact that one of the instruments of checking corruption in the country is the Auditor General's report. But the years between which the report is released and the time it is considered, or rather the report is surveyed and the time it is being considered, there are quite a distance, there's quite a distance in between. What's your take on that?
Okay, I think it all goes down to how efficient the government is, because most of these things are not given attention until maybe at some later time when they might not even become too relevant in the public sphere. But for the issue of arms now, I think no time is passed for it. I know the earlier debater, but it can never be late to visit it, because this is something that directly deals with the security and for the lives and properties of Nigerians. And then if you look at it, Section 85 has given the Auditor General the power to actually audit those accounts. And then Section 88 of the Constitution, the power for the National Assembly to have that oversight over public accounts. But what is troubling is this issue is something that cannot be allowed to go past, because it doesn't only affect Nigeria. It affects the whole of West Africa, because arms unaccounted for, especially for that high amount of arms, is going to be troublesome for the region, especially with all the tension that is probably going on now.
I get that, Mr. Hassan, I will come back to it, but the question is really about...
treaty now that Nigeria is... yes?
Yeah, I'll come back to that, but the issue that I'm taking you up on right now, beyond the fact that we're talking about the very dangerous and precarious situation of the arms, small arms, or whatever we want to call them, is the fact that this report is coming up 6 years behind. Now, there are those who should be questioned that have not been questioned. As the senator said, the previous assembly ought to have looked at it if the report had been ready on time. Whether or not the report was ready on time, that's another conversation altogether. But you are an anti-corruption civil society organization. What is your take on the fact, or maybe I should ask it this way, how significant do you think the Auditor General's report is, particularly the way we are using it or handling it in Nigeria today when the report doesn't come out on time?
Okay, I think I get you fully well now. I think the report is really significant because it allows us to hold public officials to account. And then the report being audited now, or maybe the National Assembly exercising its power of oversight at this point in time, 6 years after it should have done, is actually inexcusable. And then because this is a country where people are usually not held into account because they have left office and then they are no longer of interest to maybe the powers that be, the former Ninth Assembly, they're actually going to get away with it, and then nobody will be held to account.
Okay, Senator, let me come back to you on this. There are some civil society organizations that have moved considerations around the fact that, okay, maybe we need to have an audit commission maybe an audit commission will give the Auditor General's office a little more room to operate, a little more autonomy, a little more authority to be able to do its job with less fetters than it has now. What's your take on that?
Well, thank you so very much. You agree with me that, or you may not know, that the law regulating the office of Auditor General of the Federation as of today was as old as 1956. The ordinance of 1956 gave birth to the office of the General of the Federation, meaning that since 1956, we don't have our own local law to regulate the audit office. But be it as it may, we have a bill now, which is Ordinance Repeal Bill, which is going to repeal that ordinance of 1956, wherein we are going to look at so many issues surrounding the office of the General of the Federation. We may change the name, we may give them more powers, because that office is a very sensitive office. Like we can see yesterday, I commended them openly because I was impressed with the way they meticulously, put down their figures and facts, in the course of their job. So it's a very wonderful office that other anti-graft agencies can lean on to actually work, like AFCC, ICPC, and even the police. So by amending this law, we are going to look into it and give them more power, more especially as it relates to their independency, because it's only when that office is independent that they can actually function. And that is the basis of our move towards transparency and accountability in Nigeria.
Senator, over the years, and that's something that Mr. Hassan just mentioned, that most of the time, when anyone is indicted in the Auditor General's report, and I've been looking at these reports since 2015, the 2015 report, 2016, 2017, up until whichever is the most recent, there are indictments. I think it was 2017, the 2017 report had indictments that totaled 2-point-something trillion naira. Well, guess what? I do not recall anyone being penalized, anyone being punished, anyone being brought to book, anyone being called to account as a result of these indictments. What do you make of that, Senator?
Well, in public service, there are division of labor. While the Office of the General gives us reports, the Public Account Committee will look at the report and come up with a resolution which we are going to lay before the Senate plenary. If that resolution is carried by a majority of members of parliament, that will be addressed to the presidency or direct the appropriate anti-graft agency to go into full investigation and charge appropriately. So that is what we are doing. And like I said earlier, I may not know what happened before, but the 10th Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is out to do things differently. And any investigation we conduct, any findings we make, shall be made public. And be assured that the president, being a Democrat, will act on it. And those who have erred on the side of the law in the course of that audit will be made to refund their loots and also pay other prices as stipulated by the law.
Senator, it seems you have just validated what Mr. Hassan's fears were. The fact that most of the time people are indicted and nothing happens to them. And if the process you talked about now, from the public accounts to plenary to the presidency, is anything to go by, why should Nigerians trust that not only will you do things differently, but we'll get a completely different result? How do we know that this is not going to be treated as another family affair when some members of a political party or members of the of friends of governments are indicted?
No. One thing you should have at the back of your mind is that the 10th Senate are out to do the will of Nigerians. Remember, I said ab initio that if you want a different result, you must change your modus operandi, the way you do things. If reports have been laid under the carpet before now, people like us, you should know that we will not allow that to happen again. Every report we do in public account, I want to assure you that at the end of our first 4 years, you will see where we are. And I would like you to confront me with any that we've not taken to its conclusion. So Nigeria should know that this is a new set of leaders led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is a good man and who has proven himself economically, and a Democrat for that matter. A Democrat believes in rule of law, and that makes him different from other presidents who had. This is a man that is thinking outside the box. He met a very bad, in fact, a dying economy. But being a man that thinks outside the box, he came up with so many economic policies. Some may be harsh at the beginning, like fuel subsidy, but today you will tell me, you agree with me that the price of fuel is coming down and it continue to go down because of the measures he has put in place. So, and he's also coming up with this tax reform, though that is a discussion for another day. If you study the tax reform and you will agree with it. Personally, I was against it at the beginning, but I took time, 2-3 days to study the law, and I know that this bill is a welcome development. In fact, it's going to be a very solid foundation for our economic prosperity as a country. Thank you.
All right. Well, Mr. Hassan, are you as optimistic as the senator is on this issue?
Sir?
Are you as optimistic as the senator? Do you agree with him? Do you trust that indeed he is going to, keep his word?
Yes, I'm a bit optimistic that if there is the political will, this is something that can be done. But my major challenge now is most of these issues that have been discussed that are of public interest, enough consultation is not being done to get the opinion of the public. And I think no matter how good reforms are, if the public are not well informed and are not carried along, then it should be delayed until the public have their own input in it, because these are matters that directly affect them. And in terms of the creation of the audit commission that was suggested, I think we have far too many agencies, given that Oransaye report has still not been fully implemented. These are things that offices under ministries can actually handle. All we have to do is to provide the right platform for these offices to go and carry out the work, and then to make them more institutional than individualized as they are in the current form. Because if an active person is heading an office, the office will be active. And then if another person comes in, the office dies down. So we have to make our institutions capable of going on their own, irrespective of whoever comes into that office. He has to respect those standards that are in the office, and then he has to carry out the objectives for which that office is being set out for. And then another issue that has been of major concern to us is appointment into boards now for all these anti-corruption agencies. You find that all these boards are headed by politicians, and then the members of those boards are politicians who were appointed there based on favors, and then the agency is sort of answerable to that board. So there has to be a way where appointment into these positions are done in such a way that transparent people with no political leanings are appointed into anti-corruption agencies to actually work or to serve on the board. And then in terms of their appointment, you see appointment being sought in this Abuja, and then it involves some of these anti-corruption agencies. And when someone has to pay to get a job, I think his major focus when he comes in is maybe to recoup the money he spent and then to actually maybe get profit. So these are systematic issues that needs to be looked at and addressed if we are going to be serious about the fight against corruption in Nigeria.
Indeed. Well, Senator, let me quickly take you up on the issue of the 29. You have said that, well, it's not like as if you're not looking at other reports at the same time. Are you saying that other reports from the Auditor General's office is already out, but you're looking at just 2019 for now?
No, we're looking at them randomly, like we'll have 2019, we'll have 2020, we'll have 2021. We also have 2022. And I think 2023 is ready.
Okay, but
yes. We're looking at it at the same time.
Okay.
Simultaneously.
All at the same time?
Yes.
Well, in this particular instance, the police, the Inspector General of Police was that your summoning was at the committee meeting
yes,
yesterday at your
he honored our invitation.
Yes, and that was after several invitations to him. Clearly, you were not satisfied with the explanations that his deputies or his lieutenants gave, and you have asked him to come back on Monday. Is that correct?
That is what we said.
You're sure that this is not going to be settled behind the scenes?
No, it's before the public domain. And nothing is hidden under the sun. And
some things are hidden. You know, sometimes the press will be excused from the room.
No, but anything that gets to public account must be to public knowledge. That is why when some people called for closed door session, majority of the senators said no to it, because that's a public account. Anything not done within the Auditor General's investigation, corrections done, before bringing to us, that is the last bus stop. So, our findings will be referred to the plenary and will write to presidency.
Are you saying that anything that is brought before public accounts must be heard in public?
That is it.
That is interesting. I mean, I think that, journalists can also, take a hold of that.
We have open door.
Open door. Well, we're glad
hours.
We're glad that you're here. I'm just a little curious as to whether the Public Accounts Committee is
Even though citizens are invited to be part of it.
Of the Public Accounts.
You can ask questions. Because you're in Nigeria, yes.
Okay.
That's the sense of it. That's why we have a special hall. We have a special hall. It's only our committee that has a designated room. Because it's created by the Constitution. That is the last bus stop of all committees. So far, you're a public official, you must account for what you did.
Are you aware of just how, because some people will say, how is it that we have all of these institutions, yet corruption is still so rampant?
That is what we are saying, my sister. And that corruption cannot be traced to one man. It's traceable to all Nigerians. And that calls for the need for our mindset, change of mindset. Some of us have visited other developed countries, US, Canada, what have you. Go and read your history. What happened? What happened is that at a point they said, let's do things this way. Please, everybody, let's do things this way. And today they are seeing the result. And that's what we are calling upon Nigerians. Let's do things differently. Let's fight corruption. Be satisfied with what we have. Strive more. You will get more. That is what the new tax bill is talking about. It's going to encourage competition, economic competition, within the member states, because it's going to be the more you work, the more you eat.
So the Public Accounts Committee of of the 10th Assembly, is it very aware of the role it has to play in helping Nigeria curb corruption?
That is what we are doing. And you can give it to us. That's what we are doing. There are other issues bigger than this. And we invite you to come and watch. Like we have issue with the printing and minting press of Nigeria. Trillions were used to print billions. It's before us.
That's from the 2023 report.
Yes, we're going to look at that. And so many others. Nigerian Port Authority. Name them. Billions and trillions of naira. And we have the political will, like my friend said. People like us, we have that political will. To speak the unspeakable. In as much as it will help Nigerians. We are ready. The 10th Senate is for that.
I'm looking at some of the areas of weaknesses that Transparency International has listed, which still makes Nigeria the, ranking 36th most corrupt country in the world. You have, ranging from judicial corruption, state capture, nepotism, oil theft, subsidy fraud, corruption in the power sector, public procurement, tax evasion, selective tax waivers. These are some of the things that, for me, I think what stands out the most here is judicial corruption and state capture. These are very grievous allegations when they say that, the state has been captured, but especially the levels of state have been captured by politicians. It is a very grievous one. Is the Public Procurement Committee aware of, let's say, the Public Accounts Committee aware of, the enormous task ahead in terms of bringing this down?
We are very much aware. And I must tell you, we are prepared to give Nigerians the needed result. All those things you mentioned, they are not doing. We are all aware. We're all aware. And that is why I called for reset of mindset of everybody. You can see so many dimensions that the corruption is coming from, meaning that everybody is involved.
Apart from the Inspector General of Police, who else have you invited, or who else will you be inviting the next couple of days?
Well, we have, of course, the CG Custom is before us. And so many, almost all the agencies are before us. So as you monitor our activities, you'll be getting reports. Because we are the only committee that works 6 times in a week. We work from Monday to Saturday. Because of the volume of work we have.
Okay. Mr. Hassan, some people will say that this is dealing with perception, that this corruption index is dealing with perception, how Nigerians perceive their country to be. But Nigeria is peopled and populated by Nigerians. For those who are concerned about this, what are some of the things you think they can begin to do, to see how we can bring this, stem this tide of corruption in our country?
Okay, I think the major thing that we have to concentrate and advocate for is an independent judiciary and a strengthened judiciary. Because if we have gotten a judiciary that works for the poor people, that works for everyone in fairness and justice, that can be said to be the last hope of the common man.
Some people say, what's making it not independent now?
Well, I don't think we have time to go fully into that. But if you look at what the judiciary has become over the past few years, I'm a lawyer, so the expectation going through a degree in law school was to come and meet a perfect system where we stand for the oppressed. But what is happening now is forum shopping has increased. People look for the courts to go to because they know this judge, this is his weakness, the other judge, this is what he needs. And then apart from that, there is perception that some people have actually pocketed judges. And so there are people that no matter how strong their case is, if you go to court against them in this Nigeria, you will definitely lose. And we have seen contrary rulings, judgments being dished out everywhere. And then people actually, case that is happening in Kano, someone will go to Abuja, case that someone will come to Abuja, that forum shopping, these are things that need to be stopped. It has to be that if the Supreme Court said A is A, then the lower courts need to toe a line. But now we see lower courts even giving contrary judgment to what the Supreme Court has said, and then there are no consequences for this whatsoever.
Well, we have to thank you both. I think as a signal to say time off, but we have to thank you both for coming on Sunrise Early this morning. The fight against corruption is something that involves all hands on deck, and Senator, we certainly will be keeping in touch with you. You've invited the press, and we thank you so much for coming this morning. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. We've been speaking with Senator Onyekachin Weboy, who's the Senate Deputy Chief Whip, and also the Vice Chairman, Senate Committee on Public Accounts. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. And
we've also had with us Mr. Gimba Suleiman Hassan, who was the Senior Program Officer at CISLAC, and also with Transparency International Nigeria. Thank you once more for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we'll be talking business for the next 30 minutes on Sunrise Daily, and I know that Ini John Mekwa cannot wait to give you all the details. Please stay with us.